I'll open with a strength here. Um, the offensive line. And I think that's maybe a bit of a hot take. I don't think it should be. Um, this offensive line is playing really, really good. They're one of 3 units right now that is a top 7 in 2 different categories. Those categories being, sorry, pass block win rate and run block win rate. They're one of 2 teams that are top 7 in both of those. The Eagles and Bills are the other two. They are a very good all around offensive line. In terms of pass block efficiency, they're rating in the where are they right here? They're 14th, which again above average, and more so than their pass blocking is their run blocking. Garrett Bowles is playing like an elite left tackle. He's absolutely playing up to that contract value. He's allowed very few pressures on the season. The penalties are way reduced from last season. Um, yeah, he's been an absolute menace against the run. I think I cited it last show, but he's like top 10 in both run block win rate in power looks as well as gap scheme looks, gap scheme looks as well as zone looks. Um, I'm a big fan of what we're seeing from this offensive line in general. I feel like they're finally clicking. It's a old, I don't know, cliche. It gets brought up a lot. It takes a while for offensive lines to gel and start playing together, and it's a position group where the chemistry between all 5 guys is very important. I think as the season has gone on, that's built up. Lloyd Cushenberry is suddenly a strength. Quinn Miners is playing very well. I think Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey, the more expensive additions, are kind of the just okay pieces on that line. And offensive line play is bad league wide. So I think some people see this offensive line and they don't think it's great. It's really good compared to what else is happening in the league. And then I also think the quarterback makes them considerably worse. PFF has a stat where they track who is allowing the pressures. Is it the left tackle, the right guard, or is it the quarterback? Because quarterbacks can create their own pressures. Russell Wilson is creating his own pressures at the highest rate of any starting quarterback in the NFL. That's going to make the offensive line look worse than they are.
Yeah, no, it definitely would. That is the big thing. I think people forget that, right? Or they're not. I don't. It's hard to evaluate until you actually go and watch the film. Like you see a quarterback take a sack. Whose fault is it? Was it a coverage sack? Is it on the offensive line? Is it a quarterback's fault? All that stuff is so hard to break down just watching the game. So when it does happen, when a sack does occur, where's the easiest place to blame? It is the offensive line all day long, and that's kind of the issue I think we have in Broncos country. Because guess what? The offensive line in almost all the other years were the issue. They were 1,000% the issue. It just happens to be different this year. Zach, my question to you is the offensive line better than you anticipated? The Broncos went out and made all of these big moves this offseason, but it's even better than you could have hoped for?
I think in some ways, for sure. Like Lloyd Cushenberry is playing a lot better than I expected. I had kind of given up on the idea of him becoming like a plus starter, I guess. And I think he's absolutely been that this year. Garrett Bowles, I was hammering this drum all off season. Like, hey, we should not be banking on this guy playing really good off a broken leg when he was already having a really bad season before the broken leg last year. And I'm wrong. I look like an idiot. I'm happy I'm an idiot there. He's been incredible. So I think in that respect, they've been better than I expected. I think Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey have been a little disappointing relative to what I was expecting of
Ben
them.
Powers, really? I think Ben Powers has been pretty fucking solid.
That's fair.
McGlinchey's McGlinchey's been bad. Ben Powers through, I
McGlinchey
think.
more so.
What?
McGlinchey more so for sure. I think Ben Powers has maybe I had too high of hopes. I think Frankie did a good job highlighting like, hey, this guy is one of the best pulling guards in the league. Start asking him to pull more. And I think as they've done that, he's looked a little better. I don't know. He's been a little under expectation for me. Mike McGlinchey has been a good bit under expectation for me. But as a whole, I think they're right about on pace, maybe a little better than I would have thought off season.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to hear. I mean, I think I think they're even a lot better because of just I kind of knew what McGlinchey was when the Broncos signed him, and if you guys watched the film, you knew what Mike McGlinchey was. The Broncos just don't have the infrastructure to hide his weaknesses like the San Francisco 49ers did in years in the past. It was blatant watching the film. There were plays where it felt like the 49ers rather would have George Kittle block a defensive end than Mike McGlinchey out there. Like that was the type of player the Broncos picked up. And then, Zach, you said it. I wasn't expecting this massive jump from Lloyd Cushenberry. I didn't think that we would be seeing Garrett Bowles' second best year of his career. These are things that I just didn't see coming. So I think overall, blown me out of the water with just my expectation on the offensive line. It really has. My mom, yeah. Do you have something else to add, Zach?
Yeah, no, I think that's huge, and I want to really quick shout out to Zach Strief. I think he deserves a ton of credit for how well this unit is playing, especially the young guys like Lloyd Cushenberry and Quinn Miners. I think coaching's very important for Garrett Bowles. Look at him under Butch Berry and look at him now. And yeah, tip of the cap. First year as an offensive line coach. I think the Broncos had a good one, and it's hard to imagine him getting like poached for another job. At least, like if he builds up a resume as a really unbelievable offensive line coach for years and years and years, maybe he starts getting those looks like a Mike Munchak eventually did. But I mean, you might have him as long as you have Sean Payton as your head coach, and I think that is the probably most like the defensive coordinator and offensive line coach are going to be the most important positions for Sean Payton to figure out annually. And I think it's a Broncos fan should feel pretty good thinking that like, okay, we have offensive line coach solved for the next half decade. I feel pretty confident saying that.
And Zach, it's funny. Offensive line coaches very rarely get that opportunity to move up, like you mentioned. Like Mike Munchak, even for example, it's not like he was a play caller or an offensive coordinator ever in his career. He went from O-line coach straight to head coach. Like that's the type of trajectory they have. Some of them might become like run game coordinators and stuff like that, but Mike Munchak was not that.